Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchus Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Nerdarchus Dave,
Nathan Nerdarch,
Nerdarchus Ted.
And today Nerdarchy is going to give you the skinny on level dipping.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game with us.
So we had a viewer question come in about level dipping with multiclassing.
And I believe that was from Brandon Wiss, if I'm saying that correctly.
There's so many different philosophies on what classes represent. And I think so many people are locked in the mindset of, okay, I'm a fighter, and therefore all I do is fight. And it's not a multi-school angle of where do I derive my fighting style from. I've always looked at it as a character is looking to do whatever. Like, I'm going to fight with a longsword. I'm going to fight with a longsword and a shield. Well, where can I pull all of these different tips and tricks from?
I feel like you have to broaden even further from that when I look at the character concept as a whole and when I look at character classes. So, again, like you said, some people are like, no, these are jobs and professions. And Boris Strummer is very strictly...
Very much in that school. Yeah.
In that school train of thought.
And I would say okay, finish your thought first.
But, when I look at it, more of like a more broad and holistic approach of going, this is my character, and these are all the components of what he's done. For instance, I do heavy construction. More specifically, I do road construction. Yeah, I'm a foreman of a crew. So, like, there's all these little job descriptions and different jobs that we do, but I'm not specifically that thing. Right, even though I have tons of different jobs that I do, depending on what needs to be done, I'm not that thing. I'm a collection of all these things.
Yeah, I feel that single class stuff is just too much of like labeling someone into a group that they've got to just be stuck with. So, I mean, like if I think about the professions I've had,
if you had to be certain jobs that you didn't like, that would be the worst thing ever.
My dad was a computer programmer for like 20-something years. Yeah. That's his profession. That's pretty much what he's done. But he also was a motorcycle mechanic, and there's tons of other stuff he did.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've done chemistry for years. I've done jewelry for years. So the people are obviously multi-classed in and of themselves. So I feel like the gamist idea of just you're this profession and you're this set of rules and you can't be outside of that, it just doesn't seem to be appropriate for actual reality of people. It's great for game mechanics because you can say, I'm balancing this whole class against these other whole classes and balance.
But you could say you're a soldier or you're a warrior, right? And that can encompass a lot of different skills.
Categories.
So, like for instance, somebody who, like, let's go with that soldier mentality. All right, well, I'm going to fight and I want to fight well. Well, there are times where dipping into rogue will teach him different, let's say, maneuvers that they have the ability to do that will give them other combat abilities.
Like they learn the stabbing between the ribs up into the lungs technique, which is a sneak attack, when somebody else is distracting them.
Or the idea that, they're a soldier, but their job in the army is they're a scout. So they need to be able to infiltrate and use stealth. And not just wear heavy armor and wade into the center of combat.
And in that situation, you could either go with Ranger or with Rogue. Both would fit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say really anybody that has some type of wilderness skill in the sense of survival, like being able to be on the track, not getting rations from the army as a soldier, or someone who just has a general understanding of being stealthily and being hidden, those people all fall into scout. I mean, it's like it just single class stuff like this is how it has to be. It reminds me of like we're all Warhammer 40k pieces. D&D was based off of taking something that was a whole bunch of miniatures and actually telling a story about those individuals in that group rather than this whole entire army, which is like all these scouts, they all do this, they all have this weapon, and they all think the same. Because that's kind of like the assumption.
I mean, sometimes you dip into classes for specific class features because you mechanically want to do that. But also, if it creates an interesting story, that's a really solid reason to do it. I mean, it's best case scenario when both sort of work, like a monk who dips into cleric because having a high wisdom works well with both classes. And you could also put this more ecclesiastical spin onto the standard idea of monk, because monk also means like a friar sort of character and not just somebody who's a martial artist, right?
Right.
So that's something that you could do as well.
The Demon Saga series.
Demon Wars, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Demon Wars. They actually kind of took that kind of spin on the one church, the Balkan Order, where it's almost like they did take like your stereotypical medieval Christian church and mashed it together with a Shaolin temple,
Right.
And then threw in some magic stones just to spruce things up a little bit.
It's a really cool series. You should check it out.
So there's that, and then there's the idea that you've done different jobs, right? For one of the things that I really enjoyed early on was from Forgotten Realms. They did the first Miztica trilogy, and it was very much like the Spanish conquistador kind of take on medieval fantasy in Forgotten Realms. Well, the main protagonist, the main character in that story, they basically start off with him. He's an apprentice to a wizard, and he accidentally like disrupts some summoning. And this horrible
he goes like Mickey from Fantasia, sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, no, not even. This horrible thing comes out of this void and like eats his master, and he runs out screaming, and then happens to join a mercenary band and never looks back.
Right.
Well, something happens later in the story where he actually gets hold of a spell book, and he's looking at it. He's like, "Oh, I can read this. I actually remember some of this stuff." And it was like a really cool instance of the D&D novels putting in dual classing. Some of you guys may not even know what that is, from second edition into it. And so going forward, he actually used, wizard magic as well as, his fighter abilities, and they kind of meshed it together. So that's like an example of someone having done something before and then moving on in their life, but they still have that skill set.
Bringing up dual classing, that makes me think of so you have dual classing, which I abused in Baldur's Gate, the game, because you could go and
It's confession time now.
yeah, you could go with like, oh, I'm going to be a fighter for all these levels, have all these hit points, and then I'm going to be a wizard. So then by the time you get dual class done and you're equal level or above, I think one above the level, I forget how it worked. You had ridiculous powers of all the fighter and ridiculous powers of 12th level wizard, and you had stupid amounts of hit points. And with multiclassing, I've been the triple spellcaster multiclass before. When you get to a certain level, a single class person it doesn't matter anymore. Like they are just their 17th level and your 16th in all those classes. So you're going to destroy like another character.
Well,
there's not balance.
That's previous edition.
Yeah,
You're
what I'm
going to confuse the shit out of people who haven't played second edition.
Sorry, well, I mean, you brought up dual classing. I just kind of made me think that
Third edition did make the switch into you get these things at these levels, and when you multi-class, you do pick and choose. In previous editions, it didn't work that way. You could level up two things at once. Crazy. We're not gonna go into more depth on that. But what does happen though is there is all these things of picking and choosing when you decide to level dip, and you have to outweigh that against the things that you're going to lose from whatever you want to consider your primary class if you choose to go out there. And some classes you're going to miss, their biggest show, their best ability.
If you're going to give up those 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th level abilities potentially on that class, and can you make peace with that?
Correct.
Now, if your campaign isn't going to play up that high anyway, enjoy it while you can, ladies and
Absolutely.
gentlemen.
I mean, there's some games out there that they never see past 10th, and there's other games that they don't start till 10th.
I feel like the level dip hurts the most when you're talking spellcasters.
oh yeah.
When you start like nixing those high level spells, that's where the real difference comes in.
And I've seen that. I had a character that when I was playing him, he did something and he actually wound up absorbing someone else's soul, and it gave him levels in a martial class that he had no desire to do, and he was a sorcerer with some other multi-class stuff that I was expecting to still be able to get to those high-level spells, but I capped out at 6th level when the campaign ended, and the necromancer who's throwing out 7th, 8th, 9th level spells, and I'm like, yeah, I'm nothing in comparison. I might as well just go home.
Throwing out a fireball leveled up to the same level as a meteor swarm is just not the same.
No.
And then, and there is just some of those spells are more powerful. Higher level spellcasters, single class is way more powerful. And
7th through 9th level spells are spells that alter reality and worlds. Like, that's really what you're saying at that point. And anything prior to that is going to pale in comparison.
And it's true. I mean, if you look at the iteration, you don't get to cast that many of those spells, whereas the 6th and under, you do. And that's the real breakdown. If you can't cast those spells, you're going to pale in comparison to other spellcasters.
Now, I will say, when you're talking level dipping, one, you're generally not giving up quite as much, so it's not as bad. For instance, say you're playing a wizard, but you want to be kind of martial. You want to have some of the abilities. Say, well, maybe you're going to go Blade Singer as your tradition, and you go to 17th level, but you take 3 levels of fighter. You take Eldritch Knight, so now you're literally an 18th level caster. You only lost 2 levels.
Don't lose access to 9th level spells, right? So you get to keep the high level.
Yeah, you still have some access to the high level spells. You are going to get a couple more spells known from being an Eldritch Knight, so you'll get some stuff there. But more importantly, you're going to get things like Second Wind and Action Surge. So that's what the trades that you're kind of really looking at. What you're going to do with your multi-class and with the dip. Certain classes, in that first 1 through 3, you do get a bunch of stuff that makes it worth it. Cleric, you only have to take 1 level and you get the main. So whatever you're looking to get from that, and that could be a bunch of things that varying with whatever domain you're going with. Like, for instance, Knowledge Cleric. 1 level of Knowledge Cleric stacked on top of an arcane spellcaster is a really cool combo.
Yeah, or, I mean, if you want to go Skill Monkey, Bard, or Rogue, as far as that goes, too, would be a thing.
Technically, if you're really looking to be super skilled, you could do Bark Road and Knowledge Cleric, and you've got expertise out the wazoo.
We might have done a video on that.
We did.
Yeah.
That's a little more than dipping once you add multiple classes.
Yeah, I mean, so you either want to make a character that has a specific premise of thing that they excel at, and you have 1 or 2 tricks, essentially, if you make a multi-class character, usually. Or you're doing it just for interesting and compelling story reasons. Like, maybe you're a warlock that managed to break free of their pact, but they still maintain some vestiges of their power, so that's why they only went to, 4th level of warlock.
I was just thinking a little bit about that idea, that first level, that 1 level of cleric and 19 levels of wizard. And I was like, wow, your cure spells are still just as good because you can cast them at the highest level. But then I thought about it, I was like, yeah, but you don't have mass heal and you don't have heal, and I've seen those spells completely change an encounter.
Yeah.
That
mass heal is ridiculous.
I believe there was on our channel there was a epic level monster encounter that was run by Rhett. And
things were going bad.
I personally believe the cleric was the MVP of that combat, because when he cast mass heal and brought everyone's hit points right back up.
Final Fantasy style.
700 hit points to divide as you choose.
Yeah, he just brought everyone back up. So there's definitely, even with the depths, there can be a trade-off, but you can also do some cool things, and it comes down to what kind of character you're trying to build.
Yeah. Are you trying to do the paladin warlock who just smites everything in sight all the time because you're continually swapping out spells for smite dice, essentially, and then getting them back with short rests, and you'll have that option. But you're not going to get the really sweet warlock abilities, the high level ones, because you're making those trade-offs, and vice versa with the paladin.
Guys, let us know in the comments below, what is your favorite level dips? While you're at it, share, and subscribe.
You can check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
Well, don't forget to check out the store.
And you can form a pact with us over on Patreon.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.